instead of letting my Kubrow do all. Oh, there you go. Damage cap. We just hit damage cap. We just hit damage cap. 2.1 billion damage. Literally, the Kubrow just hit damage cap. Negative 2.1 billion damage display on the screen. That's what I'm talking about. Hello there, and welcome back to the Codex. So just like the recent Kullervo video that I released, we have yet another absolutely banger augment for Citrine. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. First, we'll go over the Archon Shards. We're using 1 casting speed shard, 3 ability strength shards, and 1 non-Tau forged, simply because I didn't have a Tau forged to spare, violet shard for the equilibrium effect. Ideally, this would of course be Tau forged, just like these other 4 are. But even with it in its current state and only having a single one of these, you effectively have infinite energy on this build once it gets going. Let's go ahead and talk about that. Hopping into the Citrine build here, what we are doing here is utilizing the new Prismatic Companion along with a Kubrow and the Mecha set to absolutely decimate entire rooms and crowds of enemies. This combination is absolutely a match made in heaven, and it is perfect for the Mecha set. What Prismatic Companion does is it says, the gem now attaches to your free-moving companion. What that means is anything that's not a sentinel, basically. So you cannot use this on your Nautilus, for example, to just have yourself be constantly buffed and to juice the hell out of a Verglass Prime, unfortunately. It also gives you passive effect of plus 50% Prismatic Gem duration. So even though my duration on the build here only says 128%, every other ability will have 128%, but for the purposes of the gem specifically, it effectively actually has 178% duration. That's just not displayed in the arsenal here because this is a ability-specific duration increase. So the rest of the build here is primarily focused on range and strength. Now, one quick note about strength is that one of the arcanes that we're using is Bolt Augmented. There is an interesting option that you can use, which is Arcane Impetus. You will get, on this version of the build using a Kubrow, you will get 7 stacks of Impetus because the first ability, Force Procs, Slash and Impact, and you're going to be using the first ability all the time. And then the elements they're going to be getting from the Prismatic Gem Beam are going to be the 4 base elements that they always do, which is Heat, Cold, Toxin, Electric. But then since we're using Archon Continuity, that Toxin that we're doing will also proc Corrosive. So that's going to give you 7 stacks, which is 42% ability strength and 21% efficiency. Now that stacks up a lot faster than Bolt Augmented does because Augmented requires 250 kills, which is still very quick if you're doing something like a survival, for example. But this does take a little bit longer. So Impetus is faster, so it's better for shorter runs, for example, but you'll get less strength out of it. And the efficiency that you get is basically entirely irrelevant because even, like I said, with just a single one of those equilibrium shards on and the massive amount of health orbs you get from her first ability, you essentially have infinite energy. Another reason why that positive efficiency could actually be viewed as kind of a nerf to the build is that on my secondary here, we're using the 2 Augur mods, Augur Secret and Augur Pact, effectively as survivability stat sticks. With 2 of these on, we get a 80% energy spent on abilities is converted to shields buff. So whenever we're spamming that first ability, which is most of the time what I'm going to be doing because my Kubrow can do most of the work, this is constantly giving us shields back. And if we make it cost less by using Impetus, then you get less shields back. So that's not great. It is an option though for quicker runs. It is pretty cool how fast it stacks up. You basically instantly have those 7 stacks. Anyways, back to the build here. The rest of it, health conversion I know is another odd looking mod. Health conversion is going to be up 24/7 again because of the constant health orbs from the first ability. So this is a constant 1,350 flat armor buff, which does make her health tankiness much, much higher when you pair that with a 90% damage reduction from her second ability, Preserving Shell, and the extra 1,200 armor that we're going to get from Arcane Blessing, which again is very easy to stack up from her first ability. We're going to get those 50 health orbs very, very rapidly. You will almost instantly, in any mission that has enough enemies, have that extra 1,200 health. So that's very nice. And then the rest of it, like I said, is just strength and range effectively. Both Archon Flow and Archon Continuity and Archon Stretch, if you were to use that, all of those can trigger from the gem. So she is a very Archon mod capable frame. The reason that I'm not using Stretch is because I decided to go for Overextended for my ranged mod instead, because I want a really large radius from the crystal as my companion moves around. Let's go ahead and talk about one of the reasons for that. Now, onto the companion, which is the other half of this build, basically. I am using a Sunika Kubrow. Now, one of the reasons why I want a really large radius from that crystal is because one of the mods on my Sunika is going to be Duplex Bond. So instead of having just my one Kubrow roaming around, I'm going to have multiple Kubrow clones roaming around. all of those clones will be able to benefit from and trigger the gem beam as long as they are within the radius of Prismatic Gem. And only your main companion, the real Kubrow, none of the clones, is going to have the gem radius on it. So you need to make sure that if your clones are kind of roaming around a little bit, ideally have a large enough radius that they're still activating that constant gem fire and whatnot. So we're using the other two mecha mods. We have Mecha Recharge, and then the other mecha mod is on the claws, of course, which we'll showcase. The reason why I chose the Sunika for this showcase is largely because of the Savagery mod. This says the Kubrow rushes at 8 enemies within 10 meters, dealing damage, knocking them over. So this means that your Sunika Kubrow is going to, a lot of the time, be rapidly attacking multiple guys, and it benefits from the stats from its claws. So this is just regular attacks, basically. So the huge amount of status that you're going to see on our claws is going to be applied to each of these guys, so you'll have those status procs being spread all over the map, and it'll make the mecha spreading very reliable. The other one is Unleashed here. This makes it do basically just a ton of extra damage to enemies that have Overguard, which is very nice. Now, if you recall, I had a ton of health and a ton of armor on the Citrine. That's going to benefit my Kubrow with Link Vitality and Link Fiber, because this includes even temporary buffs. So that extra 1200 health that I get from Blessing, for example, once I gain that 1200 health, my Kubrow is going to gain even more than that, actually, because it's 125% buff. So when I get 1200, it's going to get like 1500-ish, for example. So that's really nice. Vicious Bond is going to be going off constantly on this, because this only works if you have a Warframe that's applying abilities to enemies. And since we'll be spamming that first ability, Vicious Bond is going to have basically 100% uptime. So our Kubrow is also able to armor strip. Contagious Bond will spread those procs around even more reliably. So we have basically double status nuking between this and the mecha set. Again, Duplex Bond is just even more guys out there spreading status for us. Momentous Bond, whenever we kill an Xmas enemy, we're going to give random free extra elemental damage to our Kubrow, which does not combine with their modded elements. So on my claws, for example, as you're going to see in a moment here, I have heat. If I kill an Xmas and I get cold damage, it'll just stay as pure cold and pure heat. They do not combine. So this is just free extra damage. It's really good if you get one of the dots that we're currently missing that scales with the mecha set, for example, like gas. We don't currently have gas modded on, so whenever you get gas, it's free gas clouds everywhere. It scales with the mecha set even more, because the mecha set does more and more damage for each additional damage over time effect that it absorbs, basically. That's some very funky math there, not going to go into it. Just know that the more dots, more damage. It's amazing. I've actually hit damage cap on this build. We'll see if we do it in the video. Onto the claws here. The claws have absolutely insane status chance, 324.8%. The reason for this is because of the Claw Mecha mod, Mecha Overdrive, plus 60% primary weapon status chance added to your companion, and plus 90% status duration. That's why I'm specifically using the Paris Incarnon with this evolution. Increased base status chance by plus 60%, which is absolutely insane. And then on the build here, you just load it up with status mods and crit chance mods like Critical Delay if you're using a crit version of the build, which we're not actually using today. So I could actually replace this with something else, but I'm basically out of mods that matter, unless you're like me and you have a ribbon with status chance on it, which in that case you would put that there. But for the purposes of this video, we're going to use no ribbons, obviously. So just put on every status chance mod that you can. You can also use Hunter Track, which will give your companion an extra plus 25% companion damage against enemies that you've proc slash on, which the first ability, again, on Citrine does that. So free damage for your companion. Also make sure you have this Visage Ball, Exilus mod for your Paris. That's another 90% status chance, and all that status chance is why my claws are up to, again, 324.8%, which is absolutely insane amounts of status chance. Now, again, this is a non-crit build, so I thought some of you guys would like the fact that you don't have to have the bite mod, which is nice because that mod's very expensive, and of course very expensive to level up in terms of endo, because it's a rank 10 gold mod, so we don't have to worry about this. We're doing just pure non-crit status damage. So of course you want the immunity resistance, gives you a 1.5x multiplier to your stats basically. And then the rest of this we're using Burning Claws and Precision Conditioning to convert everything to slash and heat damage. We're getting some extra magnetic damage on here from the magnetic claws. I decided to put this on here because the extra magnetic damage will help against enemies with Overguard or shields, and the extra status duration can give the status spreading even more time to do insane amounts of damage basically. Call the Weak is very good here because we're not critting. It says non-critical hits deal plus 240% damage. So this is even more base damage on top of Maul, and it's 60% more base damage per elemental status type on the target. and there's going to be a lot of status types on each target since we're playing as Citrine. So there's a whole lot of synergy on this build here. I think that's enough yapping. Let's go ahead and hop into the mission and actually showcase how disgusting this is. All right, so I just started a Circulus Conjunction survival mission. Oh, I think I forgot to say I'm also using Roar, by the way, over my 4th ability, because Roar is coded as a universal faction multiplier, so this will make your Kubrow do even more insane amounts of damage with all that extra status that's going around. Let's go and get that Roar up. Make sure you keep your 2nd ability going. As you can see, we already got a little Mecha nuke right there. And I'm not even going to kill anybody. I'm just going to keep using the 1st ability to mark them with that and make them take a little bit of extra damage thanks to having more stats effects on them, recall the weak and whatnot, and then just let my Kubrow do all the work. And you'll see, we'll see some very high damage numbers here. I just saw 1.6 million. I've actually seen damage cap from this. If you get Contagious Bond to spread a few times, and then a stacked up Contagious stack triggers a Mecha detonation, that can literally hit damage cap. 2.1 billion. It's hilarious. You'll see some very, very high numbers from this, so damage is not at all a concern. There's another 1.6 million. Gotta keep finding those mecha targets. There's a 31 million right there. And again, you can feel free to pause the video and take a look at the numbers that you're seeing and validate what I'm saying, because there's some absolutely nutty numbers going around the screen right now. For this being entirely from the companion. This augment opened up at just a hilariously new playstyle for me. Another thing you can do is you can use the Sunika Kubrow. Not Sunika, that's what I'm currently using. You can use the Huros Kubrow and be invisible 24/7, because if you want to let your Kubrow do all the work and you're just casting abilities, you could be permanently invisible, because that invisibility only breaks when you shoot or use a weapon, not from abilities. So huge survivability there. Basically just pure caster setup. It's like, you know, a minion enforcer. So that's another fun way of doing that. Just depends on how you want to play. Right now, I'm, you know, me surviving isn't an issue. My Kubrow surviving not an issue. We have a ton of armor. We have a ton of health. You can, of course, also kill alongside your Kubrow. So let's pull out my melee influence Okina setup here. And I'll just start doing some regular kills. On the Paris, by the way, the arcane that I used was primary dexterity, so it gives me a little bit of free melee combo duration for your melee setup if you do want to go that route. And now we'll also have my own influence electric procs, adding an additional layer of AoE on top of the mecha set, and it can trigger the mecha set because electric is a dot. See, we got my favorite room over here. Let's go ahead and move to that room real quick. All right, there's a nice mecha detonation. I think I resumed the recording right as that went off. As you can see, we just killed a whole lot of guys right there. You can tell we killed a whole lot of guys because if you look at our armor bonus, we have a 960% mecha pulse armor bonus. You get 60% extra armor per person that is detonated by that, basically. So let's divide 960 by 60. That's 16 guys. 16 guys just got roasted by our Kubrow status detonation. Earlier today, I saw around a 14 or 1500%. That's like 25 guys. So it is, like I said, hilarious how much of a room nuke that your Kubrow can be with this build. And you don't even have to kill guys yourself if you don't want to. You can literally let your companion do all the work, and it will get over 100 kills per minute easily. No problem whatsoever. But of course, feel free to benefit from the crystal buff yourself and whip out your melee or whatnot, whip out one of your guns, whip out something like the Phantasma Prime, for example, loves that extra status chance. Anything with really high base status chance loves that base status increase, because the crystal basically just functions like a very large status chance mod. You can see right now, we have it at just about 300%. So if you had a weapon with 30% base status, for example, that would add 90% additional status chance. Sorry for that really loud noise in the background. That's from my Twitch stream that I'm currently doing. Catch me over on Twitch, by the way, if you enjoy this kind of content. Unified_Codex over on Twitch. It's a great time. But yeah, this just absolutely shattered the mecha set for me. I think this is really funny. Let's see if my Kubrow can take care of the Acolyte for me. I'm just going to run away. And yeah, there goes this. There you go. Bye. Goodbye, Angst. You did not like that status damage, huh? Not at all. So yeah, there's a good Acolyte kill to wrap up the video for you guys. Try this build out. It's hilarious. Try it on other companions. Like I said, you can use it on the Invis Kubrow. You can use it on a Hound, and you could spread around a lot of status with the basically room priming potential that Hounds have. Lots of options. The only thing that you cannot use is a Sentinel, like I said, because it does have to be a free roaming companion. Hopefully this video was fun for you guys. Hopefully it was informative. Hopefully it showed you how absolutely busted the Mecha set is, because a bunch of you still don't know how good the Mecha set is. I will see you guys in the next one.